In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 key elements that are absolutely required to succeed, not just in the coaching industry, but in today's coaching industry. What the world has done, the way that we've been disrupted by the pandemic and all the arguing and bickering and racial tension and all that stuff, it has changed people. And because of that change, people are demanding something deeper and different than they've ever demanded before. If you don't know what that is and you can't make the shift, your business cannot succeed. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sean Smith. I've been coaching in this industry for over 15 years. We made millions and millions of dollars. We've pivoted multiple times based on what the market has demanded. I'm gonna break all of that down in this video. Now make sure you watch the whole video, not just to get the entire conversation, which is important, but you never know when that one nugget is gonna drop that you needed to hear that'll change everything in your business. In this episode of the Truth About Coaching show, we're gonna talk about truth, transparency, and trust, not in that order, obviously, in the coaching industry. So let's talk about the coaching industry: truth, trust, and transparency. In this show, I want to talk a little bit about where the coaching industry is and where it's going in the future and what you really need to do to succeed in this new industry, because we're not playing the same game that we were playing before. The game has changed because people have changed, because the market has changed. And since the game has changed and people have changed, well, then that means that the rules have changed. And if you don't really play by the new rules, then you're just not going to be able to succeed. So here's what I'm noticing. There is a ton of information out there. We live in this information age now, right? And there's so much information about anything and everything. And we now live in an area, not an area, but in an age where anything that you want, you can basically get it to come to you. Any piece of information. And this is because we've had the internet for 20 plus years, and we've had online marketing for about 10 years, and we've seen social media marketing really kick up for the last 5 to 6 years. And so there's so much competition now in this digital highway that it's fierce. And what people are doing is they're competing on the front lines of marketing in the media, in the traditional mainstream media, as well as all the channels that we have, the access that we have on our smartphones. And it's causing people to be bombarded by all of the marketing messages. Like, people feel like they are getting so much information thrown at them. People are trying to get their attention. See, our attention is, I think, the most scarce resource now for humans. And it's the most important thing from a marketing standpoint, is to get people's attention. So in order to build a business of any kind, we're no longer just focused on how do we get their interest, because before we get their interest, we need to get their attention. And people have been bombarded for so long that our attention spans are really short. And we're literally being programmed by the digital world to be addicted to certain platforms, to not stand still and be present. We're being programmed to just move through life and move through our consumption of information on all the various channels lightning fast. And what that has done is it has changed the essence of the consumer. And I'm sure all of us would agree, we consume social media differently than we did in the past. We consume the internet differently than we did in the past. We have different expectations. We have different desires. We use online information differently and for different purposes than we did before. So if that is the way our society is programmed, and that's the way our society is consuming information at this like breakneck speed, then if you're interested in getting their attention because you want to teach something, because you want to engage people, because you want to sell something, because you want to build a business, then now the priority number one is, how do I get their attention? And what a lot of people are focusing on is how do I get their interest? And so we play with all the different ways that we can title our programs, and we focus on selling, and we focus on how we're going to nurture people, and we basically focus on what are we going to do with people once we get them. But we got to get them. And before we get them, we got to get them to pay attention. That's the new world that we live in, and it's not slowing down. It's going to continue, in my opinion, if I could predict the future here, it's going to continue to speed up, and it's going to do it exponentially. And because people are being bombarded by all the information out there, what's happening is they're retreating, they're armoring up, they're armoring themselves to try to fend off all of the digital attacks. I mean, it feels like it's an attack, right? You go on a Facebook and you see all these ads, and you go on to YouTube or you go on any website pretty much, you see all these ads, and the ads are following you, right? You notice that, right? The ads are following us. And now you might be on one device and then log in onto another device and they're following you. Like I just looked up something on Amazon and then I saw an ad on it on Facebook. The sophistication of our marketing capabilities is so high now, and it's causing people to just go, oh my goodness, enough already. They want to close their eyes, they want to close their ears, and they just want to protect themselves from all of this onslaught of information. So now we have an industry and an individual consumer who is engaging with us, or colliding with us is the better word. They're colliding with us with their armor up. They're colliding with us with their protection. And they don't even want to stop and give us their attention because they want to move on to the next thing. And people are just going so fast nowadays. So how can we get people to slow down and actually listen? And if you're anything like me and a lot of people that I talk to, especially in the coaching industry, if people would just listen, like I have stuff that could really benefit them, but they're not opening the emails, or they're not clicking on my posts, or they're not seeing my ads, or they're not listening, they're not paying attention. Because that's the kind of human that we're dealing with now, is humans that have such a short attention span. So now the question for us from a marketing standpoint and a messaging standpoint is, how do we pierce the protection? How do we pierce the armor? And before I go there, let's talk about why a lot of people are not just in protection mode, but they're also skeptical. They're skeptical because pretty much everybody at some point in time has been taken advantage of or disappointed in their interactions and their experiences with some kind of online marketing. Whether it was a full-blown scam that they fell for, or a virus getting onto the computer, or they bought a program and the program didn't deliver what they wanted it to deliver. And it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It just matters that the consumer is coming into this potential collision with our message from an armored perspective and a distrusting state. Because they were taken advantage of or disappointed at some point in time with something that they saw online. And when we protect ourselves from the source, not from the exact details of where we were disappointed. So in other words, if I bought a program online in the coaching industry, let's say, and I didn't like the program, then the next time I see an ad from somebody in the coaching industry, my protection mechanism is immediately going to go, don't trust them. Because remember, last time you trusted somebody that looked like that and was on that platform and talking about that same thing, yeah, there was disappointment at the end of that road. So don't trust. So now we have a consumer that doesn't trust and is protected and doesn't want to give the attention to anybody. So how do we get through that? And if you don't start changing the questions that you're asking yourself to this kind of question, and you still stay stuck on the questions that were relevant 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, if you stay stuck on those questions and you answer those questions that are now irrelevant, then your solutions will also be irrelevant. And that's what's going to cause a lot of frustration for a lot of people because they can't get through the protection. So the question, again, has to be, how do I get their attention? So we've got a consumer, an individual human being that's trying to protect themselves from disappointment and and guard their energy. See, we all want to conserve our energy. Attention is one of those things that we want to conserve naturally. Regardless of all the stuff that I've been talking about, we all want to conserve our energy. So we've got an individual human, guarded, protected, distrusting, wants to conserve their energy. How do we get their attention? Well, the way we get their attention is truth. That's how we get their attention. And one of the reasons is because their disappointment probably didn't involve the truth. And I'm not talking about the truth from a right or wrong perspective, like correct or incorrect. That's informational truth. What I'm talking about is energetic truth. I'm talking about real human truth. And part of that are these other two T's, is trust and transparency. So when we're sharing our message, we have to show up transparently. We have to show up truthfully. And that's the only way that we are going to earn their trust. And the human that's behind the armor, the human that's been disappointed, when they hear a different message energetically, not linguistically, not verbally, we spend so much time on what words should we say. It's not about the words that we say. It's about how are we saying those words. It's about the energy that we're delivering those words with. That's the kind of truth that I'm talking about. I'm talking about human truth. And that can be felt by people. And when the armor is designed to protect us from a certain kind of voice, and we come at them with a different voice, then we can pierce the armor, or we can go around the armor and really disrupt the people who are trying to protect against more disappointment. And I believe that going forward, authenticity and transparency and trust are going to be the new currencies in this new online digital world. And specifically for coaching, which is designed to help people, we have to get this, because that's a vulnerable conversation. When somebody says, can you help me with my life? Can you help me lose weight? Can you help me make more money? Can you help me in my relationship? Can you help me have better sex? Can you help me have more happiness? Can you help me in my life, in my experience of life? That's a very vulnerable place to come from. And when people open themselves up to that level of vulnerability, there's got to be trust. And if there's not trust, they won't open up. Or if at any point in time while they are open energetically, they feel like this is not a trustworthy conversation anymore, I don't feel safe anymore, I don't feel like you're trustworthy, or I don't feel like you trust yourself, or I don't feel like you trust this conversation, or I don't feel like I'm actually seeing the real you. See, we become skeptical because people have been fake. We become skeptical of being duped, being, again, taken advantage of. We become skeptical because we don't want to be fooled. That's why the new market is demanding transparency and demanding honesty and demanding realness. That's going to be the new currency. So if we're not willing, anybody that's representing the personal development industry, if we're not willing to play in that space of truth and transparency, we won't get their trust. And if we don't get their trust, we won't get their attention. And if we don't get their attention, it doesn't matter how amazing your stuff is. It doesn't matter how incredible your sales copy is. It doesn't matter how amazing your marketing is. It doesn't matter how pretty your website looks. None of that matters because we don't have their attention. And I think not only do I think that's okay, I think that's fantastic, because what this is doing is this is filtering out the people who don't have the guts or don't have the body or just haven't put in the work to earn people's trust in the capacity, or in the context rather, of helping them change their lives. So I don't think this is a bad thing at all. I think it's a good thing. I think the market is demanding truth and transparency. And so if Any of us that are wanting to participate in this journey, that we're wanting to share our message, that we're wanting to get clients, that we're wanting to build a business, any of us that are doing that kind of work in this industry, we have to earn our stripes. We have to earn the respect. We have to command the respect with our transparency, not demand the respect with our intellect or with us are trying to impress people. That's what people are tired of. Now, here's the great news. That's not an ability question. The question is not, do you have the ability to be truthful and transparent? We all have the ability. The question is, do you have the willingness? So this is not a capability question. This is a willingness and permission question. And this is in the truth conversation, or trust conversation rather. The question is, do you trust you in this climate? Do you trust yourself with your own transparency? Do you trust yourself with your own story? Do you trust yourself with your ability to serve and to help other people? Do you trust you? Because if you don't trust you while you're captaining this ship, who's going to get on to the boat? Nobody. So part of what makes people trust us is they're sensing, they're listening at a deeper level, they're smelling at a deeper level, they're paying more attention at an unconscious level. Does this human trust him or herself? Because if this human doesn't trust him or herself, then I don't trust me in that human's presence. That is an innate sensory depth, like radar that we have. And because our society is more disruptive, because the media is sharing all the drama and the trauma and the fear and all the stuff that gets eyeballs, because our society is driven to a large extent by a lot of the disruption and the division and the fear and the anxiety, then everything that I've been talking about is more imperative. We need to have rooted certainty, confidence, trust. We need to be solid. We need to be solid in the present moment. We need to be solid in ourselves. We need to be solid in our conversation. We need to be solid in our capabilities. Otherwise, people are not going to pay attention. And if they do pay attention, but while they're in your space, they don't feel that same sense, then they're just going to clamor back up. And from a precedent perspective, if they saw one of your videos and they didn't get the sense that you were real, the chance that they'll ever watch another one diminishes greatly, almost infinitely. There's a very low chance that our society gives us second chances now if they've already been disappointed by us. And one of the reasons is because there's options everywhere. There's just too many options out there for them to go on to the next person. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm not saying this to say that you need to have your information down pat and perfect, and you need to have your presentation, and you need to have all of your marketing and branding, like you need to be all put together before you go out and start sharing your message. I'm actually saying that that stuff creates more distrust, right? People distrust anybody and anything nowadays that looks perfect. The more perfect you are, the more skeptical, the more suspicious you become nowadays. You know why? Because one of the things that, I'm going to go a little deep here. One of the things that abusers need in order to continue the cycle of abuse is charisma. They need people to keep coming back. They need something that's attractive, and one of the ways that abusers of any kind, and I'm not talking necessarily about physical violence, although that certainly fits into this conversation, but people that are taking advantage of other people and the people that feel like they've been taken advantage of, usually they were drawn towards something that ended up being fake. And what they were drawn to was probably something that looked attractive, like perfect, almost too good to be true. They were drawn to this pretty, polished, perfect, impressive magnet, and then they were disappointed. So now, polished and perfect actually is suspicious in today's climate. I think we get more trust when we show up with our scars, when we show up with our imperfections, when we show up with our truth, when we show up with our honesty, when we show up transparently, we actually earn people's trust a lot more because they can relate to us than if we show up with our perfect, polished facades. And yet what I see is so many people are waiting to get in motion. They're waiting to share their message until it's perfect. And what I'm saying is the very goal of perfect is the wrong goal anyway. So why are we waiting to be perfect when being perfect is the wrong thing anyway? Just be real. And as you're sharing your message will evolve, but your message cannot evolve in your head. Your message needs oxygen to evolve. And when you practice being transparent, being truthful, being real, being authentic, then your message can start to become attractive to people who are craving that piece. So hopefully this is landing for you. If you have any questions about anything at all, go ahead and type them in the chat box here, wherever you're watching this, or send me an email or respond to any of the emails that you get. And one last thing that's coming to me now is part of truth and transparency is individuality. Another thing that draws our attention nowadays when we're all armored up is distinction. Anything that's different from what we've experienced before gets our attention a little bit better because we haven't created a protection against that. So the more different you are, the more distinct you are, the more unique you are, the better the chance that you'll be able to pierce or avoid people's connection protection, their protective armor. But that's one of people's biggest fears, is to be real and show the world who they are, putting themselves out there. Now, if you like this video, check out that video where I broke down how to be relevant, how to get people's attention, and ultimately how to succeed as a coach. You can't win in a market that you don't understand. So for the people that take the time to learn this stuff and apply a lot of these things that I'm going to be talking about, you have a chance. And for the people that don't, you don't.